Hi guys, Olive here. Here today to tell you about my most anticipated new book releases. All these books are due to come out in January, February, and March of 2022. The new year is fast approaching, and although the publishing industry has slowed down a little bit at the end of the year, like it always does, I don't mind because I am busy looking ahead to all that 2022 has in store. There are so many books coming out next year that sound incredible, but in today's video, I'm just going to be talking about the ones that are due to come out in the first quarter of next year. There were so many that caught my eye, but I've narrowed down my list to the 20 books that I am the most excited about, and I'm going to share them with you in today's video. As you'll see from this list, things are still a little bit sleepy in the book world in January. At the turn of the year, things are just kind of slow going. Everything does start to pick up closer to February, but there is one book that comes out very early in the year that I think has the potential to be a big one. It's called The Latinist by Mark Prins, and it comes out on January 4th. This is a modern-day retelling of the Daphne and Apollo myth, and it's set on Oxford's campus. There is a doctoral student who gets tangled up in a very dangerous situation with her mentor, who was obsessed with her to the point of standing in the way of her success in order to trap her. Apparently, this book is very dark academia at the start, but then it becomes more and more Dan Brown-esque as the book goes on, and it's also being compared to Possession by A.S. Byatt. And from the early reviews that I've seen, it seems like the kind of book that you either love or hate. I obviously have no idea how I will feel about it, but I am very excited to give it a try. Then there are two books coming out on January 11th that I am very interested in. The first one is called Lost and Found by Kathryn Schulz. And can we just take a moment to appreciate how gorgeous this cover is? Oh, I love it so much. Anyway, this is a memoir, and it seems to be part love story and part grief story because this author met the woman who would later go on to become her wife 18 months before her father died. So it seems like in this book, she talks about that time in her life and how great it was, but also how horrible it was. Helen McDonald has a blurb on this book. This book is getting rave reviews already. I hear it's gorgeous. I feel like this could be a contender for one of my top nonfiction books of 2022, even though it comes out right at the start of 2022. I just can't wait to read this book. And the other January 11th release I'm really excited about is another memoir. It's called I Came All This Way to Meet You, Writing Myself Home by Jami Attenberg. This author has also written a number of novels, including The Middlesteins and All Grown Up, but this is her first memoir. And in this book, she does talk about her early life and reflects on her earlier years, but she's also talking about her travels, going on these self-funded book tours, traveling around the country to promote her novels. This is the first book that I have heard of that seems to discuss the modern day experience of being an author. Just from the little tidbits of information I've picked up over my years of being in the book world, it seems like authors are now expected to do the lion's share of promoting their own work, which sounds like a lot of pressure, especially if you're also trying to write your next book at the same time. Very interested to read more about that in this book. And then the last two January releases that I'm going to talk about in this video both come out on the 25th. And the first one is a novel called The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis. This is a work of historical fiction. Part of it takes place in Gilded Age, New York, when a former model gets the opportunity to work as a personal secretary in the home of Helen Clay Frick, daughter of tycoon Henry Clay Frick. And the other storyline takes place in the 1960s. There is another woman working in the exact same building, although it has since been converted into a museum, but she starts discovering these clues that might solve a decades-old mystery of the Frick family. I'm not always attracted to books like this, but I will fully admit that the inclusion of the Frick family is what drew me to this book. The Frick family was very, very big here in Pittsburgh. I understand they also had a residence in New York. I know this book takes place in New York, but Pittsburgh is where Henry Clay Frick made his money, so I have to believe there's going to be at least a brief mention of Pittsburgh in here. And that's enough for me to pick it up. I love my city. What can I say? And then the last January book is a really intriguing one. It's a work of nonfiction. It's called Ahead of the Game: The Unlikely Rise of a Detroit Kid Who Forever Changed the Esports Industry by Kevin J. Ryan. This is the story of a man from Detroit named Delane Parnell who founded the company PlayVS. It is a team-based competitive gaming company, and that kind of competition has come to be known as esports. I've never been a huge fan of that name, I will admit that, especially since I am a sports book reviewer for a newspaper now. But my issues with the name aside, I can't deny that it's become a really big thing. It requires a ton of skill to do, and you can make some serious money doing it. So you can imagine that the companies involved are also quite successful, and this is Parnell's success story of building this company. But now on to February, which is the month in which publishing really seems to be back in the swing of things. So there are 3 new releases coming out on February 1st that I would like to mention. The first one is a novel called When We Lost Our Heads by Heather O'Neill. This is the new novel from the author of The Lonely Hearts Hotel, which was a favorite of mine back in 2020. This new novel from her is set in 19th century Montreal, and we follow 2 polar opposite preteen girls. They seem to be part friends, part enemies, frenemies, if you will. They have a very complicated relationship until they're forced apart, only to reunite later on down the line. So it does seem similar to The Lonely Hearts Hotel in that way. And I am all for that, because if I love this new one even half as much as I love The Lonely Hearts Hotel, I will be very happy. The other 2 February 1st releases are both works of nonfiction, and they're both obviously being released in anticipation of Valentine's Day. So first, there's Heartbreak, a personal and scientific journey by Florence Williams, which apparently blends scientific information about what heartbreak actually is with the author's own personal story of getting divorced after 25 years of marriage. And then there's also From Hollywood with Love, the rise and fall and rise again of the romantic comedy by Scott Meslow. This is a book about the great film genre known affectionately as the rom-com that people have either loved or loved to hate over the past few decades. There are so many great examples of this style of film, and I'm sure they're all going to be discussed, and maybe I'll have to go and watch a few after I'm done reading this book, for science. So if you're looking for some good Valentine's Day reading of the sad or happy variety, those might be 2 good options for you. But if the topics of searching for love or being happy being alone more match your situation, then a book coming out on February 8th called The Lonely Hunter by Amay Lutkin might be for you. This is a nonfiction book about a woman who goes on as many dates as is humanly possible in 1 year's time in order to answer questions like, if there are more unmarried people now than ever, why is there still a pressure to couple up and not feel complete until we've found love? I'm really interested to read this because now that I'm in my 30s and most of my friends are in their 30s, I've seen them feel the pressure of finding someone special and in a hurry if they want kids. I've never gone through that myself because I met my husband when I was really young and we've been together ever since. I have never dated. I was never serious with anyone before him. So I will read this book like I listen to all of the stories from my friends about the good and the bad of dating with my usual mix of curiosity and horror. And the other February 8th book on my radar is the new one from Rebecca Mead. This book is called Homeland, a memoir of departure and return. This is by the author of My Life in Middlemarch, which is a memoir that I really enjoyed. So this new book is technically her second memoir, and it's all about moving back to London, where she's originally from, after living in New York City for 30 years. So it seems like in this book, she's going to discuss that situation of uprooting her life and moving back to her home country, but it also seems like she plans on having a grander discussion about what it means to leave behind your adopted homeland, what all is gained and lost by leaving it behind. I'm really excited to read this one, not only because I know Rebecca Mead is just a fantastic writer. This is going to be a beautiful one for sure, but also it sort of applies to my life because I live in a city I've adopted as my own. I live in Pittsburgh and I love it here. I would miss it so much if we ever moved away. Even just the thought of that is enough to make me sick to my stomach. So I don't know how she did it. This is going to be a fascinating read. Another book from an author I've read before is When I'm Gone, Look for Me in the East by Quan Barry, which is the first of 4 books coming out on February 22nd that I would like to mention. I read this author's previous book, We Ride Upon Sticks, last year, but this new one sounds totally different. It's about an estranged pair of twin brothers who go on a shared journey across Mongolia. It sounds gorgeous, and I know that Quan Barry has some serious writing skills because We Ride Upon Sticks was dense, but it was really impressive. And this book takes place in Mongolia, which is one of those places that I will just read anything about, anything set in Mongolia. I'm just fascinated by Mongolia. So I have multiple reasons to pick this one up. I will definitely be reading it. The next February 22nd release I am very excited about is called Funny Farm, My Unexpected Life with 600 Rescue Animals by Lori Zaleski. This book is exactly what it sounds like. It's the memoir of a woman who unexpectedly came to run an animal rescue on a farm in South Jersey where she took care of animals of all kinds. And I'm not sure I've ever heard of a book that comes so close to my childhood dream. I had lots of ideas of what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I knew one thing for sure. I wanted to be surrounded by animals. I wanted animals of all different kinds. And then I did get to adulthood, and instead I have one cat whose authoritarian rule over this house is oppressive. I guess I'll just have to live vicariously through this author. Next up is another memoir. It's a very different kind of memoir, but it's also one that's due to be released on February 22nd. It's called Sentence, 10 Years and 1,000 Books in Prison by Daniel Guinness. In this book, the author talks about the 10 years that he spent incarcerated and what his life was like during that period of time, but he also talks about how he made it through the experience with the help of the over 1,000 books that he read during that time. If this most anticipated releases list were to be ranked by how eager I am to read all of these books, this book would be close to the very top, if not the very top book. I am very, very eager to read this book. I expect it to be brutal at times, but I'm also anticipating that it's going to be extremely powerful. And then the last February release that I'm going to be talking about in this video has a little bit of a confusing title situation. I've seen some places call Adam Nicholson's new book Life Between the Tides, and then other websites show that the main title is The Sea is Not Made of Water, and then Life Between the Tides is the subtitle. I don't know, but Adam Nicholson has a new book coming out in February, and it's about the ocean and the human relationship with the ocean. I just read his great book, The Seabirds Cry, over the summer. I reviewed it here on the channel. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll link it for you in the description box below and up in the cards. It's fantastic, and it won the 2018 Wainwright Prize for Nature Writing. So because he's a very seasoned author and his writing is top-notch, I think there's every likelihood that this new one from him will at least make the long list. I definitely want to read it. This is an author I'm very glad to be newly following after he won me over with The Seabirds Cry. And now finally, on to the March books. All of the ones I want to mention in this video are concentrated in the first half of the month. I'm assuming publishers are pushing all of their March releases earlier on in the month because they want books on shelves as spring breaks start to happen, which I do understand. So on the first Tuesday in March, March 1st, there are 2 books due to come out that caught my interest. The first one is a bird book. It's called The Bald Eagle, The Improbable Journey of America's Bird by Jack E. Davis. This is a natural and cultural history of the bald eagle, that symbol of the United States of America. I am a bird nerd, so I will of course be reading this book. And the other March 1st release is another animal book, but it's not so narrowly focused. It's called The Social Lives of Animals by Ashley Ward. This book seems like it's going to be very Mary Roach-esque in that it's going to be made up of case studies of social interactions within species and between species, and I think the author seeks to debunk the idea that the animal kingdom is solely defined by competition. This one seems like a 2022 must-read, for me anyway. And the two March 8th releases I wanted to tell you about both have historical leanings, but the first one is just a straight work of history from the great Helen Rappaport, and it unsurprisingly has a lot to do with the Romanov family. It's called After the Romanovs, Russian Exiles in Paris from the Belle Epoque through Revolution and War. This book tells the stories of Russians who moved to Paris in the wake of the revolution. Some flourished, others didn't. Some assimilated to their new home fairly easily, while others were incredibly homesick for Russia. I really like Helen Rappaport's books. I think she's probably the best known for her book, The Romanov Sisters, about the four daughters of Nicholas II. I think it's known as Four Sisters in the UK. But she's really great at what she does. I'm sure this new one is going to be fantastic. The other March 8th book is a work of historical fiction called The Last Confessions of Sylvia P. by Lee Kravitz. This book is a reimagining of Sylvia Plath's time spent writing The Bell Jar. And after having read and loved the enormous biography of Sylvia Plath that came out last year, it was called Red Comet, I reviewed it here on my channel, I now add any and all things Sylvia Plath to my TBR, just automatically. And the last release date of note for this quarter, the last one that I will be covering in this video, is March 15th. And there are two incredible sounding novels coming out on that day. The first one is a book that my friend Amanda, who owns North Avenue Candles, told me about. It's titled The Cartographers by Pang Shepard. This is by the author of The Book of M, and this new one sounds a little Shadow of the Wind-ish. In this book, a young woman finds a very strange map mixed in with her deceased father's belongings, only to discover that that map is extremely rare, and there's a collector out there who is hunting down and destroying every last copy. So there's the mystery of that going on, plus I think there are some magical elements in here as well. It sounds like so much fun, and I can't wait to get lost in this book. And the final book on this most anticipated releases list is another more cerebral sounding novel with maybe some fantasy elements thrown in there. It's called The Carnival of Ash by Tom Becker-Legg. This book is set in a fictional Italian city that is said to be run by egotistical poets. A young wordsmith comes to this city hoping to make his name, only to get caught up in the intrigues of the city. I've seen some interesting reviews of this one. It seems like it's not going to be a book for everyone, but I think I have a good chance of enjoying it. So those are the 20 books that I am most anticipating in the first 3 months of 2022. If you're excited about any of these, please do let me know. And also let me know if there are any books that you know of that are coming out in January, February, or March that you think are really exciting, that you think I might be intrigued by. There are so many books that come out every single week. There's no way I can know about all of them. So if I missed any that you want to bring to my attention, please let me know. You can put any or all of that in the comment section below. But if you would like to take a look back at all of the books that I was excited about in 2021, I made a video just like this one for all 4 quarters of 2021. And most, if not all of those books are now out. So if you want to go rewatch those videos or watch them for the first time, if you want to use them as resources, as you put books on your wish list, or if you have gift cards to spend, all of those videos I will link in the description box below. If you'd like to keep up with what I'm reading and writing about right now, you can find me on a variety of places around the internet, including Goodreads and Instagram, the 2 places where I'm the most active. The links to everywhere you can find me will be at the bottom of the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.